It's always nice to see another Saw. Hey everybody, welcome to Mainly Movies. Today I'm going to be talking about the ninth installment in the Saw franchise, 2021's Spiral. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for a variety of movie-related content like reviews, rank lists, and trailer reactions. All my reviews include a breakdown of the pros and cons, my rating, and some tailored film recommendations, so be sure to watch through to the end of this video for all of that extra content. Spiral stars Chris Rock, Max Minghella, and Samuel L. Jackson, and was directed by Darren Lynn Bousman. It follows Detective Zeke Banks, played by Chris Rock, as he and his rookie partner investigate a series of grisly murders that appear to be the work of a Jigsaw copycat. So, it's been a while since I was last in a movie theater. It's hard to believe, but the last time I was at the movies was back in October for a private screening of Hocus Pocus of all things. But theaters here are finally starting to ramp up again and getting theater-exclusive movies, so I'm hoping my theater visits are going to become much more regular again. That said, there was something fitting about Spiral being my first movie back. This is a franchise that I've been invested in since its beginning. I can still remember the exciting shock of seeing that first Saw movie in theaters, and the cringes induced by some of those traps in the early sequels. Going to see a Saw movie in the theater was an annual tradition for me. In fact, the only ones I missed in theaters were 6 and 7. So as weird as this sounds, I needed to see this in the theater. Spiral is an interesting addition to this franchise. It's set in the same world as the previous Saw movies, but it's not really a sequel. There's no direct connection to the storyline or characters from any of the previous installments, so I guess you could kind of consider this to be more of a spin-off than anything else. And that spin-off idea applies to more than just how this movie fits into the timeline of the franchise. This film takes things in a new and very different direction for the series. We've had detective characters in past movies, but the films have always centered on either the psychological thriller elements or the gruesomeness of the traps. Spiral flips that focal balance. This is a police procedural, a detective story, just set in the Saw universe. And as a police procedural, I think it's decent. It manages to hit just about every trope you could think of, and these detectives are certainly more reactive than proactive when it comes to trying to solve the case, but I still found it entertaining and honestly refreshing within this franchise. I think Chris Rock does a pretty good job here as the lead detective on the case. Obviously, he's best known for his comedic performances, but I think over the last few years, we've seen just how thin the line between comedy and horror can be, with many comedians successfully making the jump. And he dials back the comedy much more than I expected. He's got a few almost stand-up bits in the opening minutes, and some quippy bantering early on, but once the case gets underway, he plays it very serious, and for the most part, I think it works. One of the things I was most impressed and surprised by here was the visual style, the whole look and feel of this movie. The Saw films have never exactly been the most visually appealing movies out there. They've always had that sort of green-tinted, grungy coolness to them. Spiral, on the other hand, has an unexpected warmth to its overall visual aesthetic. Even though it's set during present day, with Fitbits and Instagram, it has an almost timeless quality to its look and feel. The police station especially just had this classic look to it. Between the set design, costume design, and color grading, you couldn't blame someone if they thought this was set during the 70s, the 80s, or even the 90s. The only time we get a change in that visual style, and a slightly more typical look for the franchise, is when we're faced with the traps. Stylistically, these were easily the weakest parts of this movie, mostly because of the editing. Almost every time we get a trap reveal or see the trap in use, the sequences are full of this stylistic jump cut editing that makes it look like you're watching a trailer or an early 2000s music video. I think the intention was to be sort of a throwback or reference to the style of some of the earlier films, but it just clashed with the rest of this film's style and really stuck out. The traps themselves were decent. They were far from being the most gruesome or creative we've seen in the franchise, but I would still say they were good by normal Saw movie standards. So if you view them in the context of this police procedural they're interspersed with, By contrast, some of them are reasonably brutal. I don't know if it's just because I'm desensitized after 18 years of this franchise or what, but none of these traps got under my skin. I didn't have that cringy squirm in my seat feeling that I've gotten from most of the other movies. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because this is a detective story first and foremost. It just might be a little underwhelming for somebody coming just for the traps. Spiral set out to take the franchise in a new direction, and I think it succeeded on that front. This is quite different from what we've seen before. Although there are certainly references to the classic Saw film structure, this is much more a police procedural detective story than it is a torture horror movie. It does try to please fans of the latter, and of the franchise as a whole, but in doing so, it takes away from the strength of the detective side of the story a bit. The story's okay, but if you're a fan of this franchise and know how these movies tend to work with their twists, I think you'll be frustrated by how blatantly the movie telegraphs its big reveal. That said, Spiral approaches the Saw universe from a refreshingly new angle and is, unsurprisingly, quite a bit better than many of the other sequels. Alright, let's talk about the pros and cons. The biggest pro was definitely the visual aesthetic. I certainly didn't expect the look and feel of a Saw movie to be one of my favorite things about it, but here we are. It very much has the visual style of a classic detective story. If I had to pick a time period to associate it with, it would probably be the 70s, but honestly, it has this sort of timeless quality to it. It has this classic film warmth to it, and then you throw in the production design, the costumes, and the heat wave of the story, and you've got a very iconic looking detective film. The second pro sort of stems from the first and is the detective angle of the story. It's not the best crafted detective film or police procedural, but it's still pretty solid comparatively. What really puts it in the pro column, though, is how this detective story is integrated into the Saw universe. It's a very different approach to the franchise, kind of feeling more like a spin-off than a true sequel, but I think it really works. It's refreshing in its simplicity, and is a nice blend of investigative mystery and classic Saw traps. On the con side, the biggest issue was the editing, specifically during the trap sequences. Almost every one of the sequences had this very jumpy reveal style, with super quick close-up reaction shots and jump cuts to different angles. It had a style much more like you would expect from a trailer rather than the actual film. Obviously, it was a stylistic choice, but I think it was very much at odds with the editing style of the rest of the film and really stuck out as a result. Before I give you my rating and recommendations, I want to remind you that if you're interested in buying any of the films I mentioned today, I do have affiliate links for all of them in the description below. I get a small commission from anything you buy using one of my links, so I'd really appreciate it if you use them if you're in the market for any of these movies. I'm gonna give Spiral 3 out of 5 paws. It takes the franchise in a new direction and is a solid and enjoyable entry in the series, favoring police procedural mystery over unrelenting torture horror. I would recommend Spiral to fans of dark crime thrillers. If you're a fan of movies that blend investigation with elements of horror, like Seven or Silence of the Lambs for instance, then I think you'll appreciate the blend of genres here. I think existing fans of the Saw franchise are going to be very mixed on this one. I have a feeling that people who prefer the earlier films in the series will be more inclined to like this one, but I'm not sure you can really generalize it in that way. I think it comes more down to what exactly you like about the Saw movies. And if it's just the gruesomeness of the traps, I think you're going to be a little disappointed here because they're not really the focus. If you liked Spiral, I would recommend Seven. It's another dark crime thriller involving a pair of detectives trying to track down a serial killer who creatively and gruesomely kills his victims. If you're looking for another movie in the Saw franchise that sort of balances the mystery, traps, and emotional backstory, you might want to watch Saw 3. And if you liked the 70s police-centric crime drama elements here, you should check out Serpico for some more of that, as well as a very similar plot thread and internal conflict. Alright, a couple questions for you guys. Number 1, have you seen Spiral? If so, what'd you think of it? And number 2, what's your favorite trap from the Saw franchise? Be sure to leave your answers in the comments below so we can get a discussion going. Alright, so if you got some enjoyment, insider information out of this review, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button. And if you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe or add it to see more videos like this. Till next time, this has been Alyssa with Mainly Movies, the way life should be.